Again, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again for being here. I want to welcome everybody that's now joining us online. We are streaming the afternoon program. So let's kick it off and get started. I'm very happy to introduce, for the next segment of the program, John Nardi, President of the Shipping Association of New York and New Jersey. John?
Thanks, Mike. And we pay for half of this, you know, so just letting you know. Even though they have two logos, we only have one, so we're going to have to change that. So how about this winter, huh? How about that walk from your car to the event today, right? How about if you were a longshoreman, or if you're in the Coast Guard, or if you're a trucker outside? Well, we're all inside in a nice, comfy, cozy atmosphere while they're all freezing out there. So I think we should give all our port workers a round of applause. This has been a particularly brutal winter, but now to the business at hand. State of the port. For me, requires a look back to 2024. I don't know if we're going to see numbers or whatever, but our fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th, so if you hear numbers that are a little different than the Port Authority, that's the reason why. From a cargo perspective, the growth was just about 8% in 2024 in that period compared to 2023. We had taken a small dip in 2023. Port work hours were up 7.3%. And we had a slight improvement of man hours per lift of a little less than 1%. What one cannot see in this result is what I consider significant headwinds that we experienced throughout 2024, which, I think it's an impressive result. And in addition to the big one you want to talk about, we had Panama, right? They had a drought. Ships couldn't get through. A lot of car ships couldn't get through. They stopped coal on the West Coast. Saw a lot of containerized cars, which changed the market quite a bit. The route to the U.S. East Coast via the Suez Canal was shut down, right, due to geopolitical tensions. We're coming off a period of inflation that we hadn't seen in nearly 40 years. So this is where we get into the elephant in the room with the contract and the labor development. It's all good, okay? Now it is. It was 2 years ago that we were, as the Shipping Association, in this room, and this event was across the way, and we were negotiating the local agreement for New York and New Jersey. So it's been 2 years since we've had the local agreement. The master contract followed, right? And we had a lot of issues with the master contract. We're now putting together the local contract for ratification. So we're putting in writing what we think we remembered from 2 years ago, and we're putting in writing what we think we agreed to, and the ILA is putting what they think they agreed to, and eventually we'll come to an agreement there. For those who don't know, why are there two contracts? Well, the local contract in New York, in every port up and down the East Coast, deals mainly with pension, welfare, and local working conditions. The master contract deals mainly with wages, health care, and jurisdiction, which includes automation. You know, automation is an existential threat to the ILA. So they were, this is actually being viewed around the world by all longshore union or longshore labor to see what happened here. But it started out that, we needed to offset years of inflation because they were locked into a 6-year contract with smaller or more traditional increases. We didn't see the 22% inflation back then that we had experienced a few years ago, and then inflation on top of that. So although there had not been a longshore strike in nearly 50 years, such a strike was a constant threat, resulting in cargo being routed to other gateways, which is understandable because beginning from back in 2002, I think the the shippers have rightfully learned that they can't put all their eggs in one basket, and they have to anticipate that there could be some disruption. Some people, so as you know, eventually the threat became a reality on October 1st, 2024, when there was a strike. Some people refer to it as a 3-day food truck festival up and down the East Coast, but in the end, it was a strike. We were shut down. Prior to the strike, you know, we did what I think we do really well here in this port, is we met with the stakeholders and worked closely to try and calculate and anticipate all the what-if scenarios would happen. And we were able to move as much freight off the dock before. There were no ships on the dock during the strike. So it was advised well in advance, and I think the port community did a great job working together to minimize the impact of it. The point and seriousness of the situation, you know, I called it a food truck gathering, but it was serious, okay? It was serious with the wages. It required White House intervention. Fortunately, it lifted the strike pretty quickly. You know, whatever the results are of that, that's what they are. So they extended the contract until January 15th, until all of the other items other than wages were dealt with. So we had been working. We really got serious after January 1st, looking to resolve those outstanding issues, which we did with the help of a lot of people in this room. It just wasn't USMX. We had a lot of subject matter experts involved, and especially dealing with the automation side of things, who really understand how things work and how they could be altered and how you could get human intervention and still have the benefit of some of the aspects of the machines. So the ratification for the contracts, so you have two contracts with 4 ratifications that need to take place. You have the USMX contract where the ILA has to ratify it and USMX has to ratify it. USMX has their ratification meeting tomorrow, so we expect that that'll be done. The ILA has meetings with their membership at a wage scale where they, you know, it's up and down the whole coast. They will present it to their members, and they will ratify a couple of weeks after that, both the master contract and the local contract for New York and New Jersey. For us, the local New York and New Jersey contract will be ratified February 18th, which is when we have our annual meeting. Fortunately, it coincides together, so we have all the parties who, you know, who need to ratify will be there. I can't get into the details of the contract until it is ratified, so sorry about that, but I feel pretty darn confident that we're at a good place right now, and it should go without a hitch. So that's the labor side of things. You can ask me questions if you want, but I'm not going to answer them. So now a little bit about port oversight. In 2024, we worked closely with the state police. I haven't seen them here. I don't know if they were invited, but to stream and modernize the rules and regulations governing the workforce. They've improved the hiring, processing speed for people that were waiting for a long time because they were hung up at the previous entity, the Waterfront Commission of New York Harbor. And now much of the application process, it's online. It keeps the candidate informed what's going on. It keeps the employer informed of what's going on. They're well-funded. They have systems in place, and it's just been a pleasure, working with these people. I believe the open lines of communications we have with them have helped improve the oversight, and it's also helped, I think, reduce the negative publicity for the port. Because, I would have discussions with them, and they'd be like, I said, have you guys seen anybody, and have you rejected anybody, and they said, oh yeah, we do that all the time. We just don't post it on a website and tell everybody that we're doing it. So they're great to work with. In 2024, we had relatively few labor shortages, and we expect 2025 to be the same. Ensuring the port is fully employed is an ongoing goal to make sure we have enough workers, but even more so to make sure that we don't have an excess of workers, okay? In fact, 2024 was an anomaly. For the first time that I've been dealing with the port, we had an excess of employees who were hired when cargo was booming during COVID. An excess of labor sounds great, except when you consider that new workers would also have to have other jobs to make a living, because this is a high-cost area, when only receiving minimal work. So then you have the person having to make a decision of which job do they take today? Do they take the job where they feel like they're going to have regular work, or do they go to the longshore job where it's probably long-term better? So we're in the process of balancing that, and I think I think we're in a good spot on that because the volume is now catching up to the people that we have available. Moving on from labor, there is, also no shortage of legislation that we deal with. Jim Cobb is mainly the guy dealing with it. We need to keep the port competitive. Some of the issues we dealt with over the last couple of years, actually last year, storage licensing fees, heat legislation, non-compete agreements, and the never-ending attack on independent contractors, which is so important to our business. We, as the association, try to inject ourselves into any issue that affects our members and the flow of freight through the port. So that's ongoing. The Shipping Association also continues to work with industry in our local communities, which is really, the last 10 years has made a tremendous advances forward. Here's a good example. Port Newark Container Terminal. The Shipping Association and USMX are assisting in trying to eliminate homelessness in the city of Newark. Jim Policio is, he's the chair of the Newark Commission to Reduce Homelessness. I'm a commissioner, Paul is a commissioner, Paul DeMaria is a commissioner. And through their efforts, Newark has been able to reduce chronic homelessness by 50%. But there's always, still more to do. And to that end, the Shipping Association, approved by my board, has funded and will continue to fund a 211 street texting service. And what is that? The service is how it sounds. If a homeless person is encountered by anybody, somebody's having a problem, the individual can send a text to 211, and those providing those services to the homeless will be alerted for. And I just want to, you really got to, the people who help them are very special people who make this their life work. Some other things we're doing, just so you know, what is the Shipping Association? What else do we do other than give speeches and hold lunches? We're a member of the Maritime Association of New York and New Jersey, which is now headed up by Stephen Lyman. And he's done a great job at the helm of that organization. It's been revitalized and is once again truly a voice of the industry. We are a member of the Brooklyn Marine Terminal Advisory Group. Don't laugh, Beth. We recognize the need for the niche operation to handle the freight in Brooklyn and for the projects that the balance of the port isn't really geared to handle anymore. They're great at handling containers, but when it comes to project cargo and special needs, they have the expertise in Brooklyn. So we've been involved in working with the EDC and thousands of other people, it seems like, trying to decide the future of that terminal in Brooklyn. We're a member of the North American Waterfront Employees Association to monitor what's going on in Washington, which, as you can imagine, is a moving target. We're a member of the National Maritime Safety Association with 2 board seats and members of the technical committee. And that leads me to the Council on Port Performance, where Beth Rooney is going to join me. And she's going to say something. She's got her notes. I'll let her go first. I don't want to steal her thunder.
I was going to say, I thought you were going first.
No. It's the advantage of having the microphone.
Yeah. So I'm sure everybody knows the Council on Port Performance. If you haven't heard of it in the last 10 years, you must have been under a rock. But it was Rick Larrabee and John Nardi who 10 years ago had a conversation after Rick and I had a conversation in the hallway on a Friday afternoon about what was at the time the port's worst congestion in our history. And we needed to come up with a way to try to get the entire community together to work through those issues. And we have been relentless in our willingness to collaborate across the entire supply chain to work through issues. And it is 10 years. We just celebrated 10 years in the December that passed. Crazy, Rick. How is that possible? But we wanted to recognize a few people who have been with us from the very beginning. In addition to John and myself, Thorkild Hove from International Cargo Terminal and Shipco, I know he's here, has been involved since day one. Steve Schulein, I thought was sitting over here. Steve Schulein from National Retail Transportation Services. John Atkins from Port Liberty Terminal is not with us today. And two Port Authority employees who have been with us in varying roles over the course of the last 10 years. Amanda Valdez, and Hillary McCarran, when we started, was in our marketing department and helped to produce the original report, and now for the last 6 years has been running our workforce development efforts. So this year's efforts on the Council on Port Performance have largely been focused on working through appointments, and we understand that appointments, depending on which side of the coin you sit on, are good and bad. But what we also understand is that there is a likely time in which more appointments, or at least more management of the flow of cargo in and out of our terminals and depots would be necessary. So back in May, June timeframe, the council voted to develop a working group that would dive into the myriad of issues associated with appointments. And I understand Tim Avanzato just left, but Tim Avanzato from Lanka Sales has been leading that effort with Lisa Yakiman from the Association of Bi-State Motor Carriers. And that is a thankless job. So, thank you.
Yeah, in addition to just thanking everybody for their efforts with the CPP, we recognize there's things that need to be fixed. You know, this is not the what's the guy on the horse with no clothes? There's traffic in the port that needs to be fixed. We need it's a safety issue as far as I'm concerned. You know, to be able to get trucks, to get emergency vehicles in and out if there's a problem. So this is definitely something that needs to be a priority, even though it's been a priority. I think I've been more focused on the labor side of things, but going forward, this is clearly something that needs to be sorted out because we can't continue to operate the way we've been operating with the streets jammed up, not being able to get in and out of the port, people not being able to get to work, people not being able to get home. It needs to be straightened out. So that's got to be the focus going forward. So with that, I guess I'll hand it back to Mike. And thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next year, I guess. Okay.
Thank you, John. You know, the Council on Port Performance, I think, is one of the many things, but probably the most high-profile thing that really separates the Port of New York and New Jersey from other gateways. It really has just become such a critical element of getting things done, tackling problems, and it's evolved over time. Obviously, you know, during COVID, it quickly mobilized, pulled together to make sure that we had personal protective equipment for the labor workforce that's out there in the cold and was out there every day and never missed a day of work. And then after that, with cargo congestion and everything that happened with that. So one of the outgrowths of that was we realized that, we need to look beyond the gates of our port and our terminal. And through the work of Don and Beth and everybody else on the council, realized we needed to get engaged with the warehouse and distribution community. And as part of that, the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties has become a key member of the Council on Port Performance. So I'm very happy to introduce today Dan Kennedy, President of NAIOP New Jersey. Have a few remarks.
Good afternoon. Happy to be in front of you today. Thank you so much for the invitation to address the crowd here. NAIOP is one of the trade associations in the state that has probably the worst acronym because the I and the O and the P have evolved over the years. We started as an organization over 50 years ago. We are now a North American organization with over 54 chapters nationwide and a couple in Canada, which makes us North American. But we now branded ourselves the Commercial Real Estate Development Association. While our core is industrial and office, we've evolved to more mixed-use multifamily and all the niche submarkets of commercial as well. So in our heart and minds, we are still industrial and office folks, but the NAIOP brand is evolving. I took over for my predecessor who served in this role for 27 years, about a year and a half ago. And I came into this Port Performance Committee knowing nothing. Now I know a little bit more than nothing, but not nearly as much as the core partner. So I celebrate with you all that 10-year anniversary you've passed, and the leaders that started that group. Kudos to you, and we look forward to continue to be a good partner in it. We represent the other side of the chain, the logistics chain. We're on the far end. Without your work at the port, offloading this, John gave great credit to the people actually doing the work as we sit in a warm facility eating delicious lunch. We wouldn't be able to have an industrial warehouse industry if it weren't for you all. So we credit you. Thank you for your work. I think on the flip side too, you need us to store your stuff that comes off the boats. So I think the honest answer is we need each other. And we're grateful to be part of the team here that kind of moves things forward. NAIOP New Jersey was founded in advocacy. Go back 50 years, all the new environmental laws. Our members got together, 5 or 6 of them at times, said we're getting beat up pretty good. We have to get together, show some solidarity, try to do what's best for most. And we were founded on that. Kind of let's make sure that the environmental regulations in this state are reasonable and we can still do business in this state. We do have definitely a realm of sustainability in our practices, and I think we strive to do better every year with energy and land use and use of our critical resources and being better neighbors with our partners. But there's a point at which those rules and regulations get ridiculous and we can't do business. None of my members have to do business in New Jersey. Most of them at this point are not small mom and pop New Jersey businesses, but they are regional, national, or international companies, and some of which are publicly traded. They choose to do work in New Jersey still, and I think we should all be grateful for that. We've been trying to improve the EDAs and programs for the industrial sector because most of the properties that are left to build in this state require a ton of environmental remediation and investment in infrastructure. And that doesn't pay, the bills. So we do believe that that offset is important. We push back on, the word that my lobbyist uses, the phrase is labor creep. Our partners in labor are important, especially in the building trades to us. But there comes to a point where you can't do business with some of those standards. So we have a love at times, I wouldn't call it hate, but tension relationship with the labor community that we have to manage really carefully. We've achieved a couple of things the last couple of years. I think are notable before I move on to the main point of why I'm here today. We've been able to get new rules set for third-party inspections for the development process, which I think benefit folks in the port as well. Self-certification for engineers and architects for reviews of final plans, which helps kind of jump through some of the hoops at local government, hopefully maybe get tenants in quicker. We have, I think credit to Lisa just posted something on this about some of the truck mandates on electrification. I think we have some maybe better news on those mandates, the Clean Car Acts, and some of the things that New Jersey and amongst other states in the region are really kind of ahead of their skis in terms of implementation. So We're hoping that we get a better answers on that because our world hurts there too. And also some significant land use changes that are coming as a proposal from the DEP around climate change projections and sea level rise, and what does that mean around our port areas. 5-level projected sea level rise over top of the existing FEMA lines. Try building anything around the port after that. So I think there's a lot of solidarity in the room here. We focus on the land use advocacy side, the tax credit side, the municipal government side. So welcome an opportunity to have a discussion with you to see if that's something you'd be interested in hearing more about. The North and Central Jersey markets have high vacancy rates, probably the highest we've seen in 10 years. Rents are kind of stable, but that also shows an opportunity to make deals, right? This is the real estate market, it's cyclical. Supply goes up, demand drops a bit. There's a period of time where rents don't go down yet. That's probably going to happen a little bit. It's already started to happen. There's an opportunity to make deals. So in Central Jersey markets, we provide opportunities for you to meet brokers and things like that that can connect you with these properties. So that's one of the services we feel. We see lots of risks in the future: tax reform, access to capital, infrastructure, tariffs, labor volatility, energy mandates. So there's a lot of risks in our future, but let's talk a little bit about the opportunity here. We are at the warehouse sector getting beat up pretty good at local government and on social media. And one of the things my members asked me to do about 1.5 years ago when I came in is let's stop just sitting back and being quiet. Developers play a quiet game when it comes to development approvals. They think just flying under the radar will work forever. Fly under the radar, get a good lobbyist, get a good lawyer, get a good engineer, and you're gonna be fine. Well, even if it's a by right application in local government, that's not good enough anymore. So NAIOP hadn't been doing any really good air cover on promoting the positive aspects of what we do. I find the same probably could be said for the trucking industry a bit, and the port industry is well represented, but I think that because of all of these kind of major units are connected, past the Port Performance Group, I don't think we've worked really well together. You may agree or disagree on it, on kind of public policy objectives. And I think that's this is an example here where we can come together. We hired a comms firm, and we branded an effort called Circulate New Jersey. And I'm going to present in the next couple minutes quickly what this is all about. Next slide, please. So 9 out of 10 stories you read about warehouses and trucks and ports are probably more negative than positive. That's not a surprise to you all. There are organized groups behind the scenes at the Facebook pages of every town or Twitter pages or whatever that really spin a false narrative about pollution, the fact that trucking is bad, that warehouses are net negative to communities, and we just disagree with it. I'll speak for NAIOP. We hadn't been doing anything to push back on that narrative at all. We're kind of laying back. And this effort is trying to bring together, through a proactive communications campaign, not lobbying, again, not lobbying here. We all do our own lobbying work, but trying to bring together the interests of the commercial real estate sector. And we've been blessed to have John and Jim with us. We've had Lisa with us, and there have been some growing pains. We are figuring this out. We're nowhere near mission accomplished. We've got a lot of room to grow and improve, but I think we're headed in the right direction here. So Circulate New Jersey is basically a group of common interests to try to push a positive marketing campaign, essentially, for the positives about what we deliver. We clean up sites to build warehouses, and we deliver goods and services way quicker than they used to be delivered. So there's the delivery aspect. And then there's the economics, the jobs. 400,000 plus jobs statewide, 13% of the wages paid in the state and the private sector, over 10% of the GDP statewide. You hear those statistics, you wonder why the legislature has dropped at least 15 bills in the last 3 years to try to basically submarine the logistics industry. And that's just on the warehouse side. I'm sure if you added up the trucking legislation, the port legislation, there are probably like 30 or 40 bills. So why aren't we beloved? And I think that part of it is because we haven't been really together, linking arms and pushing out this positive message. So next slide, please. Created the team. Here are some of the logos. We are trying to rebrand, so you know there's no warehouse or truck or port in our title. You may scratch your head about circulate. What does that mean? Well, it's trying to kind of play off of the circulatory system and the fact that goods come into the state and circulate through, and also the jobs and economic opportunities and the cleanup opportunities circulate through the entire state as well. So we've had this team formed. We're doing better with communication. I think as we're trying to get off the ground, which we did last November, we may have skipped a couple bases, and we're trying to figure out the process by which everyone can feel a part of it. Our chairman is David Greek, our honorary chairman, David Greek from Greek Development Partners. We've got a more robust conversation going on about trying to get this right with the full team, and I think we're going to get there. Next slide, please. Again, this is changing the conversation, so I have these handy dandy flyers here if you want to get a little bit of a QR code and go back to it. The website, Circulate New Jersey. You could do this QR code and look us up. All the information's online. We've released some great statistics and basically pulling from both state data that we've been granted access to from the Shipping Association and others, and we're trying to blend that into a marketing campaign that can resonate with the residents of the state, the decision makers of the state. So when people show up with their hair on fire that says that trucks are bad, warehouses are bad, the port's bad, we've got some statistics and some data that's transferable and that we can actually push back on. We are never going to be a home run guarantee for anything in the state with our sectors. Our goal is to balance things out. When you read an article in the paper about warehouses, at least that there's maybe two sides of the story being presented. Trucking, ports, et cetera. So I think that's a big part that was missing for us. Next, please. And we've had some small initial impacts. Just sharing with you the fact we've gotten out of the box. Our second phase of this launch is going to be having a legislative tour at a logistics facility to be named later. We're going to be inviting legislative leaderships. I guarantee you that a vast majority of sponsors of these bills have never sat in the cab of a truck, never been to the port, and definitely never been in an active warehouse. So we're trying to change that. We're going to be doing some Trenton days, again, not lobbying, but educating about the upside of these industries, logistics industries. Next slide, please. And I am finishing right up, just some little organic outreach. Look for us on LinkedIn. Seems to be the site that we seem to have the most outreach to and impressions and eyeballs on. It seems like the X or Twitter world is kind of falling off. I personally don't tend to go there as much as I used to. I tend to avoid social media altogether, so I'm really not the audience here. And maybe you all feel the same way. I feel like social media is a bit of a snake pit, but we have to live in that world if we're going to be effective. So we're trying to become more active on the social media platforms that resonate with the allied professions here and the communities as well. So look us up. I'm in the crowd. Ask me for one of these handy flyers. My name's Dan. I'm from NAIOP, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Our final speaker today, no stranger to anybody in this room, and somebody I've had the personal pleasure and honor to work with for the last 10 years. And as Chairman O'Toole, alluded to early in the day, an absolute tireless worker for the port industry. Any time of day, nights, weekends, Beth is available for, I don't know if I want to put out that you're available for all of us, but I can tell you if you call her, she answers the phone. So to give an update from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey perspective, our director, Beth Ann Rooney.
I just said to Mike, he's using my full name, only my mother does that. So John started, by talking about, John Nardi started earlier by talking about a number of the things that, plagued our industry in 2024. I've got a few more additions to the list, and by the time I was done making it this morning, I was feeling a little bit like David Letterman because I came up with my top 10. But, just to go through them again a little bit, the Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, the Red Sea diversions, John mentioned, the Panama Canal, John mentioned. All of those things led to some vessel bunching that we needed to contend with here. certainly the ILA strike, and then as we came out of that, knowing that we had, a little bit of a reprieve, fear and threat of another potential strike in January. Front-loading of cargo because of fears over tariffs that would be placed by the new administration, empty container management, appointment management, long turn times, and road traffic, as John mentioned. I'm thrilled that I think we can take 5 of them definitively off the table for 2025. 3 we're actively working on and been working on and will not stop until we fix the problems. 1, I believe, will be resolved this year, and 1 is a constant, unending effort by, the ocean carriers. But if you know anything about our maritime transportation, distribution, and logistics industry, just as you think that there's nothing else that could go wrong, and we've experienced it all, we get hit with something that we never even thought about in our wildest dreams. So who knows what 2025 is gonna bring for us. Next slide, Amanda. So all that to say is that the performance that we experienced in 2024 was not without its challenges, but as in past years, each and every partner, stakeholder, customer of the Port of New York and New Jersey stepped up and did whatever was necessary to get things done, to keep commerce moving. The chairman, and I think John mentioned the statistics, where we're working on a full calendar year. In 2024, we did 8.7 million TEUs, an 11.4% increase over 2023. We remain the #1 port on the East Coast by over 2 million loaded containers as compared to our next largest competitor. We did slip to #3 behind LA and Long Beach again for loaded containers, but we're just 142,000 containers less than Long Beach. We could have done it if it wasn't for some of those, other challenges that we had. Of those, 639,000 plus rail lifts, an increase of 1.7 over 2023. Today, 19% of our cargo is moving out by rail. That means that 81% continues to move out by truck and will continue to move out by truck. And it just speaks to the ever importance of the trucking community, the truck drivers, because our cargo is local and our cargo needs to be distributed by truck. But on the good news side, for those customers and stakeholders and those that are helping to route the cargo, we're utilizing today just 43% of our express rail network capacity. So we've got plenty of room for growth, and we continue to work with our express rail terminal operators, with the Class 1 railroads, and with Conrail to make that a strong, viable service opportunity. On the auto business, we did over 407,000 autos moving through the port in 2024, an increase of 11%. But that 11% increase was fueled by cargo diverted from the Port of Baltimore. And I think what is notable here is that FAPS was able to, almost on the day that the bridge came down, flex and be able to begin to accept cargo that would have been going into the Port of Baltimore, and continued through Herculean efforts until the Port of Baltimore was reopened in order to handle their auto business. So special thanks to FAPS for stepping up in a big way to do that. Over 846 individuals chose to go out of the Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal for vacation this year, but there were another 1 million passengers that went out through Brooklyn and Manhattan. So cruise continues to be a big business in the Port of New York and New Jersey. And not to be forgotten, we still handle almost 3 million metric tons of bulk cargoes. So it's our scrap metal, our road salt for melting that, ice and snow. It's our edible oils. It's the orange juice that you had this morning. It's cement and a number of other things. This area saw a fairly significant drop year over year, about 12%. But I would not classify that as a problem because that drop in cargo is all for good reasons. Number one, and most importantly, we had a mild winter, so we didn't need all of the road salt, so it didn't have to be replenished. And secondly, the Port Authority made a conscious decision to begin phasing out of scrap metal to make room for more container terminal and container support areas and to focus on our core businesses, predominantly being autos and containers. A few fun facts. Nearly 70% of the containerized cargo that's coming into the Port of New York and New Jersey today is coming in on a ship that could not fit under the Bayonne Bridge 6 years ago. That's huge. That's huge. And it's many people in the room, I can't even begin to point them out, that were all part and parcel of making that happen. 54 individual services called the Port of New York and New Jersey this year, with 47 of them regularly calling. Of those 47 services, 44 are weekly services. 73% of them are making their first port of call right here in New York and New Jersey, and 13% of them are making the last call in New York and New Jersey. And those choices that those ocean carriers are making, many of them in the room, and we thank you for your commitment to the Port of New York and New Jersey and everything that you do, we would not be, there's not a sector in the industry that we could talk about that says we could not do it without you. We literally are all inextricably linked, but the commitment that the ocean carriers have made to the Port of New York and New Jersey is tremendous. Our largest import partners, China, India, Vietnam, Italy, South Korea. China decreasing, increasing, Vietnam increasing, South Korea increasing. With the reopening, hopefully, as the situation in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal begins to resolve itself with a ceasefire, we're cautiously optimistic that we will able to begin those services again through the Suez Canal in short order, which makes us a more competitive option for manufacturing that is taking place in Southeast Asia. And our top commodities, furniture, plastics, electronics, beverages, wines and spirits, this is New York, New Jersey, paper products, toys, and games. So next slide. So you've seen this slide before. Again, if you haven't, I just want to orient you to what we're looking at. But this is the forecast that we had created back in 2019 when the Port Authority completed our Port Master Plan, and it's our Port Master Plan for the 2020 to 2050 range. And when we did all sorts of micro and macroeconomic analysis, we identified the forecast for containerized volume to be somewhere, by 2050, to be somewhere between 12 million and 17 million TEUs. And for the purposes of planning, and that's a huge number, for the purposes of planning, we decided to say, okay, it's pretty reasonable that we can probably do 14. It'll be a heavy focus on the local market, with a strong focus on the discretionary market, but not guns a-blazing on the discretionary market. So when you look at where we wound up in 2024, we are 5% higher in 2024 than what our forecast in 2019 suggested that we were going to be. That's good news for all of us. But we need to ensure that our investments, our infrastructure, our operations, our workforce, and our policies and procedures all keep up with this demand. Next slide, Amanda. So Chairman O'Toole, kind of built me up. A little, not too much pressure where he says we just get it done. But the Port Department gets it done. He mentioned that we're 168 people. Not a really impressive number when you think about the Port of New York and New Jersey. Of that 168 people, more than 100 of them are our maintenance guys and gals. That means I have about 60, literally 60, professional staff, many of whom are in the room, that do the work every day to keep and help keep the Port of New York and New Jersey operating. It's a monumental task with a very, very small group of people. They talk about me, and my crazy, ability to be available at all hours, but every single one of these people, are just as crazy as I am, and I thank you all. So focusing on a couple of the key accomplishments, you can read the slide for yourself. I mentioned, how we were able to quickly accommodate the Baltimore cargo, not just on the auto business, but again, the day the bridge collapsed, our container terminal started taking cargo off the ships that was destined for Baltimore. That would not have been possible without the flexibility and the adaptability of our partners in U.S. Customs and Border Protection, who were able to, facilitate making that happen. And then all of a sudden, we had truck drivers from Baltimore coming into the region who were not familiar with our processes for our truck driver identification credential, for the RFID tags. And again, the team flexed in order to make that happen and make that happen very quickly. Last year, we kicked off our wharf rehabilitation program, certainly an important part of the ecosystem for the ocean carriers, ensures resiliency, ensures continuity of business and safety for the vessels to tie up. We will be working on the wharf replacement program for the next 30 years, but because there's just that much infrastructure that needs to be replaced. We had a ceremony earlier in the year, mid-year, with the Army Corps of Engineers, with Colonel Young, Joe Seabode, with the General, to sign the PED agreement, the Preliminary Engineering and Design Agreement between the Army Corps and the Port Authority, to do the initial, I'd say the next phase of engineering and design study and analysis to support the 55-foot harbor deepening and channel improvement project. So we're about 8-9 months into that effort. We got a little bit more than 2 years to go, but in this critical phase that the Army Corps is working on now, we will work to identify the first sections of the harbor that will be deepened to 55 feet, the timing to do so, plans and ideas for where the material will be disposed of, and importantly, figuring out how much things like blasting of bedrock we need to do, or is there a lot more loose stuff down there that we just have to go in and scoop out? We're hoping for the latter. But our partners in the Army Corps could not be more important to the ecosystem that we have here. I mentioned the CPP appointment group that we launched, and we also hosted a roundtable for the foreign trade zone. And I'm willing to bet that most people in the room don't know anything about a foreign trade zone. So let me just say that working with Customs and Border Protection and individual shippers, warehouse distribution center operators, if you choose to enroll as a foreign trade zone, you're able to reduce your costs, improve your operational efficiencies. Shippers can pay reduced or no customs duties, delay payments of those duties on goods that are marked for re-export, and reduce merchandise processing fee. And for those that may be importing goods that could sit in a warehouse for longer periods of time, you can delay making the payment of those duties until you draw them out of your foreign trade zone location, for use. So Dan Gastaldi, all the way in the back corner on our team, is currently managing our foreign trade zone operations. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in, please make sure that you trip Dan on your way out. Moving on, in September, for Trucker Appreciation Week, we partnered with all of the container terminals to interact with the individual truck drivers, something that we're going to continue to do year after year, just to show the appreciation to those men and women, that are out there day in and day out in all conditions, and show them, a little bit of love. The big project for the year that started is obviously the Port Street Corridor Improvement Project. And what happened in September, after building the detour that takes you along what is Marlin Street and Kellogg Street, and a relocated Kellogg Street in Port Newark, we were able to take the Corbin Street ramp out of service. And I know that has been painful. I know that has, led to its own traffic challenges. It's something that the facility staff, our traffic engineering staff, Port Authority Police, are working tirelessly on day in and day out to try to optimize the flow of cargo. But if you haven't been in the Port Newark Elizabeth complex in the last couple of weeks, there is now no sign of a former Corbin Street ramp. It is completely gone. Completely eliminated. It looks weird. But the good news is that we will soon, and our contractors will soon be beginning the work to replace that ramp, and replace that ramp with a ramp that has the capacity to handle 2 trucks at the same time, side by side, increasing capacity, increasing safety, increasing fluidity. So I know it's painful. But relief is on its way, and Patrick, by December 31st, 2025, we're going to have a new ramp. I got a two thumbs up. So John spoke about the labor, issues. And I think one of the things that was really important to our success in being able to handle that 3-day disruption was transparency and communication, and again, that same collaboration. Early planning allowed the terminal operators to provide additional hours of operation. Saturday gates allowed the truckers and the warehousing community to respond and utilize those hours, and they were utilized very well because nobody wanted to have their cargo stuck in the terminals. And then on the same side, once the labor issues were at least temporarily resolved, early and often communication and planning that led to the quick recovery. We launched the Trucker Ambassador Program last year. That Trucker Ambassador Program, so the Port Authority is heavily focused on customer experience, and recognizing that the Port Authority is tunnels, bridges, bus terminals, airports, the PATH system. Our customer really is all of you, but it's the truck driver whose day-to-day life is impacted by the things that go on at our facilities. So we had to flex a little in our view of customer experience, but we launched a Trucker Ambassador Program late last year, in which we're looking for feedback from the trucking community, and in turn for providing that feedback, when they provide, I hope, valuable feedback, that then the truckers will earn points, and then those points can be redeemed for a Starbucks gift card, for a Pilot gas station, gift card or something like that. So Chairman O'Toole, talked about, we want to hear, what your issues and concerns are. This is one of those ways in which we can hear about your concerns. In November, we also, with the Maritime Association, again, John mentioned Steve Lyman, we co-hosted a forum on alternative marine fuels. They're coming. There's shipping lines that are talking to us constantly about burning LNG in their ships, methanol, ethanol, hydrogen, biofuels. And as a gateway, we're not yet prepared for that supply and demand. And will we have enough demand in order to have the infrastructure operators provide the supply? What are those policy issues? How does the Coast Guard then begin to regulate the facilities that are handling fuels that they're not currently handling today? And what about that transfer of fuels? And what about ensuring that our first responders are prepared to deal with a response to an incident that may involve an alternative fuel? So it was a great first step, and one that the Maritime Association is going to be setting up an ongoing working group that will continue to tease apart this issue because the IMO requirements are there and are not going away. What'd you do to me? We have finished the installation. They're not commissioned yet, but we finished the installation of 4 DC fast chargers at the Information Center in Port Newark. Those will be available for trucks that are electric, and we know there's only a handful of them in the port now, but they will be available for opportunity charges for trucks as they come in. Last year, John and I stood before you and we talked about the tragic events that led to the death of 2 firefighters on a ship in July of 2023. In 2024, Port Authority staff, Mike Edgerton and his colleagues, worked with our local first responders and provided classroom and shipboard training to 1,300 local first responders and firefighters, with a lot more to come. So something that we're committed to on the long term. And then finally here, the Senate, after just a year of advocacy, I think it was a miracle, Hillary, but truly 1 year of advocacy. When we signed the PET agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, I think the general and the colonel and Joe were all a little concerned about whether or not the Port Authority would be able to support the massive local cost share of over $3 billion in order to get the project completed. And the charge that the chairman and the executive director gave me was go out and find the money, Beth. So we set up a strategy for how we're going to find the money to pay for the local cost share. And one of those methodologies was to change the local cost share. So led by Hillary McCarran and many people in the room who supported our advocacy, within one session of Congress, we were able to change the federal cost share. And that reduces the Port Authority's cost share for the current estimate of the project by $1.2 to $1.4 billion. Just a massive, massive effort that we could not have done, Hillary, without you and the support of many others. So what we have been doing in the Port Authority is just one little sliver of all the other great things that are going on. Our terminal operators, all of whom are in the room, have been investing heavily inside the fence line on new equipment. We had 8 new ship-to-shore cranes, massive ship-to-shore cranes that were delivered in 2024 to the port, causing the Coast Guard more than a little gray hair. Captain Ondrzejczyk had hair when he took command, and a couple of ship-to-shore crane shipments, it's all over. I apologize to Mary, on behalf of the port. Mary's his wife. New electric terminal tractors, new rubber tire gantry cranes, all providing additional capacity for cargo handling in the terminals. And many of those purchases are now electric options, so they're more sustainable. And even when they're a diesel-to-diesel replacement, the terminal operators are replacing equipment that is decades old, was prone to break down and not being available, and now with new replacements are available. If you've driven around the port, you had to have seen the Port Newark Container Terminal's solar farm. Port Newark Container Terminal finished their solar project 4 years in the making, which produces 7.2 megawatts. It sounds impressive, but I don't know what it means. But it's enough to power 50% of the terminal's annual need for energy. And that's pretty impressive. And it's just using the existing footprint that's there and putting solar panels over the truck lanes, over the employee parking and whatnot. We have a new berth that has been built in Port Liberty, Bayonne. It was completed, berth 3, right at the end of the year, literally right up to the end of the year. That berth will be put into service next month with the first ship that will call at the new berth 3 in Port Liberty, Bayonne. And over in Port Liberty, New York, we took those, not we, the terminal, took those old cranes that Jim Devine bought and raised them, so that they could handle, the largest, ships of today. So good things, are happening across the board. Next slide. I know you can't read this, but just briefly, the Port Department has identified for the next 5 years our strategic goals. That will take us almost through the first phase, or 2/3 of the way through the first phase of our Port Master Plan. And here's what we're focused on: optimizing efficiency of cargo movement, staying ahead of the demand, delivering world-class operational excellence, and providing a customer-driven experience, maximizing land use and property utilization, phasing out of some of those legacy uses that are not germane to the future of a vibrant gateway port, relocating users in order to consolidate and create our zones that are focused on the container business, the auto business, and the bulk business, and identifying viable uses for or underutilized parcels that we have around the port properties. And if we can't find a viable use for our businesses, dispose of the property. While we're doing all that, minimize our environmental impact on the port. Part of doing that is community engagement and making sure that our local neighbors are fully involved and fully engaged and fully participatory in the process, as what goes on in the port impacts them and impacts their families and loved ones and their health and well-being. We'll continue to support the Clean Truck Program. We'll continue to support the Clean Vessel Incentive Program and use the Marine Terminal Tariff to advance phase-outs of older cargo handling equipment and older diesel drayage trucks. We're going to focus on improving our freight rail utilization and fluidity. You heard me talk before that only 19% of our cargo is currently moving out by rail. We need to do better. We want to do better. That's part of what we need to do in order to relieve some of the truck traffic at the gates and on the roads. In order to do that, we need the Class 1 railroads, and we'll continue to engage with them on this to provide more origins and destinations with regular service. And we will be focusing in 2025 on finally advancing the southbound connector. We need to ensure resiliency within the port environs. That is associated with our infrastructure. It's putting best management practices in place. It's putting flood protections in place. It's putting operational measures in place and continuing to train the staff, our colleagues throughout the community, and exercising all of those. We need to develop the workforce of the future. Everything that we're doing and each of you are doing within the ecosystem is changing every day, whether it's by the fuel that equipment or vessels or other things are burning, whether it's the use of technology within warehouses and distribution centers, But our needs within the industry are evolving, and we need to make sure that we have a workforce that is capable of staying up with those evolving needs. Part of that is creating the connections between those who can provide the training, provide the academic opportunities, and those that are or underemployed, perhaps second chance citizens looking for an opportunity to work in our industry. We need to develop and deliver those training programs, and we will continue under Hillary's leadership to host career awareness events and job fairs. And then finally, our focus is developing the capital infrastructure and capacity. And we're focused largely on the waterways, which I've already talked about, the road and the rail on the land side. Specifically in 2025, we will be completing some critical lease negotiations that there are no secrets in this industry. Everybody seems to know have been underway for quite some time. But as we complete some critical lease negotiations, it will pave the way for more investments by those operators in not only capacity, but fluidity, efficiency, and sustainability. This was at least written this morning. We were going to advance our Clean Ports program under the leadership of our sustainability manager, Tanya. We were awarded $471 million in grants from the US EPA, but this morning, if you haven't seen it, or last night, the administration stuck a fork in all federal funding and federal loans. So we have a number of projects in the Port Department and throughout the Port Authority that are dependent upon federal funding and federal loans. So that news, hit us as it hit everybody else. The Port Street Corridor Improvement Project has federal funding associated with it. The Berth and Wharf program has federal funding associated with it. Of course, the harbor deepening and channel maintenance and berth maintenance, deepening projects have federal funding, and all of the sustainability programs have federal funding. So I tried to put a sense of calm, to the staff this morning who's been working tirelessly on all these grants. There's a pause until February 10th, and we're going to hope for the best. I don't know what I do after that. We're going to hope for the best. And then we are soon going to be launching a chatbot for the truck service center, and all of the interaction that we have with the trucking community. We'll be launching a chatbot so that we can communicate in real time or near real time without having to wait in a queue for one of our service center folks to answer the phone. We're going to finish the appointment system work group and develop recommendations, and then hopefully act upon those recommendations. We are going to complete, now that the detour is in place and the Corbin Street ramp is down and we have the truck chargers in place, we're going to complete the rehabilitation of the Truck Information Center and restrooms in Port Newark. We were going to apply for funding for replacement of our water distribution system in Elizabeth, but again, one of the announcements last night was all current grant solicitations that were on the street, were paused. So we've got to wait and see what happens with that, but we are committed to it. We'll continue to work with the Army Corps of Engineers and Congress to get the pathway to Howland Hook and the study for the pathway to Howland Hook authorized and funded. We're going to advance the southbound connector to design and construction. And if I want to remain employed, I'm going to figure out how we're going to fund the rest of the harbor deepening project. So I'll be passing the hat before you all leave. And again, those are the small things at the terminal that we have, planned for the year. But again, the terminal operators are doing just as good in their commitment to investments in 2025. Again, more equipment. Port Newark Container Terminal, will be expanding, the size of the terminal, adding 70 acres beginning next year, increasing their yard capacity by 35%, doubling their rail capacity. MAR terminals will be doing the same things once they have the ability as we finish up some of these lease negotiations. APM has 4 new ship-to-shore cranes that will go into service by the end of the first quarter. We all know what's happening with a number of the alliances. The Gemini service is starting up here soon, and the 2M is going to be resolved. So there's a lot of work that APM and PNCT are doing in order to accommodate those things. So there's always a lot of great things going on in the port. I know that we're up for any challenges that 2025, throws our way. I pray that it's nothing more than what we already know about. But whatever comes our way, I'm confident that with your commitment, which you have, each and every one of you have given to the Port of New York and New Jersey over the course of the years, that we will get through and we will continue to work with each other to service our customers and ultimately keep commerce moving. So I'm excited for what the year, is going to have before us. We're going to have 6 years of labor harmony, John, and and we're gonna move forward. So exciting days ahead. Again, myself and my team are available, to all of you for anything that we can do to help facilitate. We know that none of the problems that we're dealing with are easy to resolve. If they were, they would have been fixed long ago. But I stand before you committed, again, to not stop until we get some of these things fixed. So thank you all again for supporting the Port of New York and New Jersey. Have a fabulous, prosperous, safe, happy, and healthy 2025. And thank you all for joining us.
Thanks again, everybody who joined online as well. Just a bit of housekeeping before we adjourn. For those of you in the room, you should have received a voucher to validate your parking when you came in. If you did not receive that, people will be at the table outside the doors here, and we'll be able to give you a voucher for your parking. So in closing, again, lots of great things happen in 2024. Looking forward to even more great things happening this year in 2025. None of it happens with those of you that are here in this room. We all do it together. So thanks again.